this tutorial is to get you started on the challenge program 4-6 called Tip, Tax, and Total. Now what you're going to do with this program is modify your program from lab 2-6 that calculated those three things. What's different now is that we're dealing with a price range. So instead of just a simple flat tip and tip price, we're going to deal with a range based on the meal price. So if the person, for example, if the person's meal came to anything between a penny and $5.99, then the tip percent is 10%. If it's between 6 and 12, then it's 13%, and so on. So in that portion of your program, when you calculate tip, that's where your decision is going to be located, and that, since there are multiple decisions, would be a nested if-else decision, and then would also include a range. So not writing the entire pseudocode, and what I would recommend is that you review that program from 2-6 to paste your pseudocode or have yourself a base to start with. But if I'm just looking at my module that calculates my tip, and I need my meal price, and I'm going to calculate tip, so that would be a reference. Now, of course, this isn't the entire program, so make sure you include the entire program. Essentially, in here, what we're going to do is look at what the meal price value is. So if meal price is greater than or equal to a penny, very cheap meal, and we have a second condition, and we're checking for ranges, so we're going to use the pseudocode and meal price is less than or equal to $5.99. Then what we want to happen is we want to set our tip to the meal price times the appropriate amount, which is 10 cents. Now, in this range type of checking, when we're using two conditions, we have to use and. If we use the word or, that would include any meal above a penny or any meal below $5.99, which would be every meal in the world, and everybody would have only a 10% tip. So you're going to continue on this module with the rest of your conditions, else, if, and then continue on from there. Now when you're looking at your flow chart, again, start with the flow chart from your previous program. But again, the decision is going to come in play where you calculate tip. And I'll have a couple other module calls in here, but just to give you an idea of how that selection might look, I'll just add a selection in here to show you how to do it, but your main will have look very different with different modules. What this is going to look like if you're doing a nested decision with going to use the meal price, and if that's greater than or equal to a penny, and then in Raptor we use the keyword and to use multiple conditions. If you were doing an or situation, it would just be the keyword or. So if it's greater than a penny and less than or equal to $5.99. Now, I think it's required to use lowercase and, but it might convert it for you. So that is how you would include multiple conditions in your selection structure. Now, if that's true, what you would do is just simply do your calculation. So that would be your tip is equal to the meal price times 0.10%. And if that's false, then this is where your nested decision comes in play. Again, you have additional options, so you would just continue on that route. Now, when you're working with Python and doing nested decisions, the code is very similar to your pseudocode. So again, start with your previous lab where you'll have main and so on. But if we're just looking at what the calc tip module will do, we're going to pass in meal price because we'll need it as a variable. And then your nested if-else decision is written just like your pseudocode. Colon. What we want to do is set tip to meal price times 0.10%. And then again, the important thing, make sure you tab back, and then you will continue on with that process.